ಶಿವನ ಕಂಡೆ.
You know, there are two or three things that have guided me all my life. In fact, they have given me a purpose and even a reason to live in India. One is something to do with the poor people, with the poor and the uneducated. Always something in the back of my mind that I must do something for them, because the majority of the people are poor in the world and particularly in India. Leaving that aside, the other thing is I want to bring excellence when there is no excellence. Everything in India is terrible. You know, whatever you say, things don't work out the way you want, and people don't do things the way you would like to. So these things have provided the undercurrent and sort of everything I have done. You know. Well, you know, I come from this state of Karnataka, particularly the old Mysore state, is known for its temples. And this statue represents all that it has to represent to show that, in fact, we are entering a temple of science. Well, I think, you know, people should walk around in a campus, in an atmosphere where there is a lot of art, paintings, and sculpture, and trees. And I think it is very important, at least for me. John Thomas here is trying to do experiments with various kinds of nanotubes or nanoparticles. He's actually trying to write something. For example, he wants to make a letter, say, which has nano dimensions. And this is a first step in actually developing nanotechnologies. So you can do nano writing. I mean, there's no question.
This is the soft lithography.
Soft lithography,
yes.
Various kinds
Yes.
of dip pen, soft lithography. That is going to happen. So you are going to make nano objects. There is no question.
Yes.
Nano electronics will be there. Here we actually grow crystals in a very unusual way. It is called the floating zone technique. We take a crystal and lower it very, very slowly, 1 millimeter per hour, very, very slow. And as it moves, we shine light, which is reflected by these gold-coated parabolic mirrors, and the crystal melts in a very narrow region. And then by doing this, we get fantastic crystals of very unusual materials, which cannot be made otherwise. We also do nano manipulation. As you know, nano objects are very tiny, about 10 angstroms in dimensions. A few nanometers is all we have, so we can't handle them by hand or see them by naked eye. So we have all the facilities here to manipulate them, see them, look at their structure, look at the electrons in them. In fact, this machine is one where we look at the structure of the electrons, or the way the electrons behave in these materials. There was nothing here when we first came. It's really wonderful to see the trees come up. They're all like your children, really.
Well, Indu and Ram, it's a real pleasure to chat to you together this morning. When you married him, did you have any idea what sort of life would lie ahead of you?
None at all. For one thing, I came from a very, very relaxed family. My father was a fantastically relaxed person. He always said, if you didn't do it something today, don't worry, there's always tomorrow. Married a man who said it should have been done yesterday.
You know, wherever I am, I come to see my wife by 6 in the evening.
Yes.
I have a cup of tea or coffee with her. And I never accept dinner invitations if it does not include my wife. You know, I get so many lunch and dinner, I never go unless I can take her and she also wants to go. That is one principle. So the evenings are meant particularly for my wife.
And invariably, when he was away, children would fall sick. Invariably. When he was home, they were perfect health, no problems. And then one day I got so annoyed. He said, "What is this? I'm going to spend half my life waiting for you to come back from these meetings." He said, "Look at it this way. I spend half my life looking forward to meeting you." That shut me up for good.
And you know, she keeps a tab on me. There's another thing. Wherever I am, early morning before breakfast, I get a phone call. It doesn't matter what time difference is, whether I'm in California or Europe. 7:15 in the morning, I get a phone call in my hotel. She'll be calling me. So I'm going to use a lot of vegetables, as you can see. And what is it? Yeah.
The things that Ram obviously enjoys doing is cooking.
Yes, it starts the day before because I have to get all the proper vegetables, prawns, chicken,
All
whatever.
in the sink, of course.
So the shopping starts the
That
previous
is a
evening.
test, yes.
At least in cooking, it's a positive.
It's like, getting an operation theatre ready.
For the surgeon to
For the
come
surgeon.
in. Yes.
So all that is done, and it's done they're kept in separate plates. According to the cooking time the vegetable will take. And
No detail is left
no details.
to chance.
No, nothing to chance.
Well, does somebody want to taste the soup? It's almost ready. Give me a spoon. I'm sorry.
There we go. Wow, that's perfection. What a blend.
I had measured this discharge current, and I thought it was interesting. And somebody else had published some other law for that. So I told him, I think it is nice. We can publish it. He said, "If you think you can publish it, go ahead. But you can thank me." But he was afraid. He was not sure of all this, Professor Joshi. And then I sent to Science actually. A lot of courage. I don't know why. I didn't realize Science was such a great magazine, and they accepted it.
So you had your first paper.
First, yeah, so that was the second one.
19 was.
Yeah, a person who was not my teacher, but who influenced me just through his book is this man, Linus Pauling. That is the first time I read Nature of the Chemical Bond. And that changed my life completely. That experience of reading that book partly, I didn't understand completely, but I thought, I must do the kind of work that is in that book. I want to do that structure, bonds, and things like that. And none of my teachers knew anything about it.
So how did you go about it, Ram?
I had written to Linus Pauling, and Linus Pauling said, for the next 2-3 years, he's not going to do structural work on molecules. He has just done this protein crystallography.
Yes.
And then, however, he's not sure. But in the meantime, however, there are a student of his who is doing a lot of electron diffraction. Why can't you go and work with him? And he gave this name of Robert Livingston, working in Purdue. I don't know where I had that courage to do that. Even now, when I think about it, I knew nobody in America. Then I went by this Queen Elizabeth, or one of these big boats, to London, to New York. And I think I told you this story before. Somebody had told me the way to do things in New York is as soon as you get down, go to the YMCA.
Yes.
And that is where you have to go. And I said, sure. And I went there, there was a taxi. I said, I want to go to the YMCA. He said, sure, it's $1.25, whatever it was, taxi. And he became a friend. Every weekend he would take me home and make a lot of martinis. He'd make a big jug of martini and keep drinking with me. Every week, and every Saturday he would take me out for lunch. He was a wonderful man. And then, of course, I met Linus Pauling during that time. I showed him these two structures. I had done methyl azide and carbon suboxide. If you see the second edition of Nature of the Chemical Bond, my two structures are there in Linus Nature of the Chemical Bond, second edition I had done by the time. That was very nice. And then, of course, went to Berkeley instead of any other place. The day I left Purdue, my research supervisor was crying, and his shirt was all wet. I'll never forget that. The day I left Purdue, I went by train from there to Chicago to go to San Francisco. He treated me like a son. He was very nice to me, my research supervisor, Livingston.
Ram, after finishing your PhD in Purdue, you chose to go to Berkeley to do a postdoc.
It ranks probably the top university in the world, and that was a fantastic. You know, in a seminar, you would see Glenn Seaborg, Melvin Calvin, all lined up in Joe Hildebrand, the front line of these generals of chemistry. You know, very forbidding to give a seminar or something like that with people like that.
Yeah.
It was very clear to me I was going to stay in America. Everybody thought so. I thought so too, because I was very comfortable, you know, culturally or even academically. I was very much at home. I used to publish a lot and so on.
Yes.
But then I got an offer from India, from Indian Institute of Science, and also had one or two other offers. I had to then decide what to do. I went through a very bad period. For a few weeks, I had sleepless nights. You know, what is it one should do? But the thing that really helped me to decide what I should do was my old background of my school days and early college days. You know, I always thought of Nehru, Mr. Gandhi, and freedom movement. You know, India got freedom when I was in college, as I told you earlier. So I thought I must do something in it. Even now surprises me when I think about it.
The blue for the first prizes, or?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the junior level. Let me see the top. These certificates are made to be given to the prize winners of the annual competition the Academy of Music runs. And it has, you can see the shape of a violin there. That's the auditorium of the Academy of Music. We have been sponsoring this competition, and we also donate the prizes.
ಮೊದಲು ನಿನ್ನ ಭಜಿಸಿದವಗೆ ಕಾರ್ಯ ಸಾಧನೆ ಏಕದಂತ ವಕ್ರತುಂಡ ವಿಘ್ನರಾಜನೆ.
The man responsible is Mr. C.N.R. Rao, a life member and managing committee to the Academy of Music. I'd like to call upon the President, Academy of Music, Mr. K.K. Murthy, to please come on stage and honor Professor C.N.R. Rao.
You must have been a little bit of a whirlwind coming into the Institute of Science.
This was a very old-fashioned, you know, it was a very sleepy place. You know, a department had 4 or 5 faculty members, very small departments, and nobody had, you know, there were no seminars in the department, as I was saying. It was terrible. And I mean, it was everybody was a gentleman. You know, they came around 10 o'clock, left at 4:30. You would never see people around over weekends, for example. It was very different. And I used to go with my students. I had some few PhD students I picked up as soon as I came. And people would say, you know, you go around a lot with your students. You know, very few people do that in this campus. Well, I said, well, that is your problem, but I have no difficulty. You know, it was everything was different. And then I started teaching spectroscopy, quantum mechanics, and things like that. which was unheard of in India
Yes,
at that time.
only 25 years. What was he like as a colleague, when you were both young faculty members at the Institute of Science?
He is one of those guys who bubbles with enthusiasm. And he comes in the morning, as you remember, till as a graduate student, he was writing a book on the ultraviolet spectroscopy. The book became so famous after that.
Yes.
And I remember, I think this something like, the guy finished the book within a few months, and we really didn't know what he's writing about. All the time, whenever we go in and solve problems and so on, all the time he will be writing.
You know, to succeed in India, it is not just your ability, intelligence, brilliance, and so on. Of course, those qualities are very useful.
Yeah.
Perseverance, tenacity, doggedness, I think these are the more important qualities. Of course, you can even call it a missionary zeal, but I don't think one needs to be a missionary. But I think that doggedness, that you won't give up. You will build a lab. You will not yield to failure. And you will not compromise to mediocrity. You will fight the mediocrity. I sincerely advise anybody who wants to make something great, do something great, or become a big man in science, best not to avoid administration, really.
Sound advice.
I know, but if you ask me, does it mean you wouldn't have taken the directorship? No, I guess I would have still taken the directorship. Because somebody has to build institutions. This is you just don't know what is right.
Others have said that you streamlined the administration.
Well, my administration is bureaucracy. Decrease the bureaucracy to a minimum. But I'm told it has increased again. I don't know. You see, I think anyone who some people, you mention a little something to them, and they bring a huge file on that next week, and then they make a bigger file. Then they have a huge 100 files, and by the time you read all that, and you forget what you started off with. So I decided never to have files and things. After all, people must have sufficient memory to remember one or two things you tell them.
Yes.
And I would demand results. Of course, I would ask them, what happened to that? I told you to do it, and so on.
Meetings were limited to a maximum of
of 1 hour. That's
yes.
It. Well, the Senate meeting, there are people who are professionals. When you come to a Senate meeting, we professors, once you start talking, there's no end. On every silly matter, they have lots of opinions. And usually the least active scientists are the ones who talk most in Senates.
Yes.
So I had to cut them short.
He's really phenomenal. I've not seen another person like that.
And of course, he's had a terrific impact on science here in Bangalore, hasn't he? Because
he has not only in Bangalore, I think, in this country, I think if he says something about science, and I'm pretty sure whether it is government or non-government, and people have such great respect and regard for him, whatever he says.
he drives himself hard.
He drives himself hard as well as others.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. Does he, even in those early days, did he drive his students hard and his colleagues hard?
He sets up an example. He says when he can work so hard in spite of all his other commitments, in spite of his sometimes not too good a health which he enjoyed sometimes.
Yes.
But he works so hard and he expects people to work, people to, even on holidays, we just work. It's a habit. It's become a religion like.
It was a holiday. And I walked in around 10 o'clock and there he was sitting with half a dozen of his students passionately discussing some latest developments in his subject. And they were all there, and of course when your boss is around and your leader is around, all those youngsters have to be around. But they were all there, so they were not looking for holidays, they were not looking for off-office hours and things of that kind. So this is what you call as a scientific temper and ambience that you bring in, which encourages doing good science, encourages youngsters to do.
I do feel, particularly in a poor country and a developing country and so on in India, I think we owe it to the community and the future generations that we lead a life such as to enthuse, encourage, promote people, young people. And if the young people are disillusioned, I think there is no future. You see, so that's why whatever I do is with young students, and it's very important for me that the students don't think poorly of me.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm a poor teacher, if I do everything in a very sloppy manner, well, you know, how can you expect them to be the future citizens doing great things for India?
He himself, I think he works like a bull. He takes, you know, for him right from the morning, because I have seen him very closely. I've seen him, and you know, you name the hour in the day, I've seen him almost around the clock.
Here in June, because if they come here in June, they'll get the terrible impression of India. They'll never want to come back again. He said, "I forbid it." So
I was not coming to the lab and going off and running around, seeing movies and stuff like that. He had put up a note on the notice board saying, "D.D. Sharma to meet me." I was very relaxed. Yeah, I went in. The blasting I got, that really changed my life around. I tell you, I mean, that was really important. Have you ever been hit by a, what shall I say, blizzard and typhoon and tornado all combined together?
And then came time of an award nomination to be sent. It was deadline was 15th November. He called me around 1st of November. He told me long time ago to prepare. I didn't prepare. He told me, what have you done about that thing? So I asked him, what thing? So he doesn't like that. He said, you are being stupid. These things are important. So go and get it done. So okay, somehow I managed to prepare all the documents, Xerox, these 15 copies of those things, the Young Scientist Award of Indian National Science Academy. And then, by the time he again called me, it was already 12th of November. 15th November is deadline. So then he, you know, he was very upset. Got the signature of another faculty member, he signed. Then he said, oh, fortunately I am going to Delhi. I'll take it myself. So he took all the 15 copies himself in his bag and took it to Indian National Science Academy in Delhi, and he deposited that on my behalf. You know, sometimes the amount of interest he takes in people, which is, I don't, you know, he takes by and large for all the young people that he has done, and he watches them and he helps them out.
We went together for a conference, and it was in a place called Puri. It's on the eastern seaboard of India, and we were all in a group of 5-6 people actually, and we were walking by, and then we came to the sea there. And I said, come on, let's get to the sea. I mean, this is really childlike of him. I mean, there are all of us prepared for seminar and all, and he stripped as much as one could. He forced me to do the same, and, and we just went to the sea actually. And everyone just watched there, no one else, and we just thoroughly enjoyed, and he is splashing water. I think there is something childlike about him.
For some reason, one day I got a call saying, you know, they want to have a group of scientists meeting the Prime Minister, Mrs. Gandhi. And then I went there, and then they were, I think, looking at various people, and for some reason they picked me, and when they formed a new National Council for Science and Technology. I was a member. I was only in 30s at that time. That was a very important policy-making body for India in science and technology. And I did many things, tremendous experience at a very young age. You not only recommend, write reports, and get things done, and they are established, you see. Of course, much later, of course, when Mr. Rajiv Gandhi became Prime Minister, he asked me to be the chairman of the Science Advisory Council. I was just 50 years old at the time, 50 or 51, I don't remember, of the Prime Minister's Council. That was a wonderful experience. Then I could write the policy for India, get many things done. In fact, the major inputs to Indian science in terms of money and all took place at Rajiv Gandhi's during that period, and that was a very wonderful period.
I've not asked anybody else this, but out of curiosity, would you regard Professor Rao as the most dominant figure in Indian science currently?
Yes, in the recent times, I should say so. I think he himself recognizes that he is dominant. I think he does not have that kind of inhibition.
I did my best to do something for India without any selfish interest, because I was offered many positions by several of these prime ministers, full-time positions in government, and two instances with cabinet rank as a minister, but I didn't want it. I said no, I will always remain outside government. Where Rajiv Gandhi would say, what is it that would take you to, what would it take to bribe you? I said, nothing. I want nothing from you. I don't mind being this advisory capacity. You mean to say you would never take? I said, never. I will never be a government servant and working for government full time. Mrs. Gandhi, in fact, offered me the first job, similar to what Michelle Kerr and all have now. That job she offered me in 1975, long ago, 27 years ago, to be head of the science agency. I said, no.
You couldn't bring yourself to give up research.
Really. I told her, I would never excuse myself. Once you get into that, you do the irreversible thing.
Yes.
You cannot say I will save the world and also do science. No. I think just save the world. I think you can't do everything. You can't feed the poor and also do many other things like that. You can do one thing, but you can help to feed the poor. That is different. You see, there is a difference. You can actually do it yourself. So I have learned that. There's some things where you can give advice, see things happen, but not get into the administration of things.
In recent years, you've actually started to work quite closely together, though you have a background in education, haven't you?
Yes, I do. I got my master's in Purdue in 67, 68. Then when we were in Oxford, I got another certificate in education. Now I work very closely with him in the production of multimedia, interactive CD-ROMs. This is the greenhouse effect.
This is particularly important, the greenhouse effect. And we want to tell them something about the atmosphere, the air, the water, everything around us. Well, when we decided to have a CD-ROM on chemistry for children, it was important to have the first section on chemistry in a very simple way. We explain what happens in simple things, just to
show it with a simple experiment and give the chemical reaction. See, this experiment has been conducted using the small-scale chemistry kit developed by
the Education Technology Unit.
He thinks there is still a fraction, a critical fraction, we should take up science, because otherwise science has no future. His own subject, chemistry, he laments. He is not getting the best of the brains in this country. And it is so with physics, it is so with mathematics, it is so with biology, and it's so about biotechnology and other things is another role. So one of his mission is to see how do we bring in the youngsters, and there are not very easy solutions to this. And one thing he has been doing is to address college students, interact with youngsters.
This is a program called Celebration of Chemistry. Of course, I'm a chemist, and I've been doing research in chemistry. Oh my God, I've forgotten how many years? 50, half a century I've been doing research in chemistry, 50 and odd years. I hope I can tell you why one has to love, or one has to at least learn chemistry, if not love chemistry. If I'm asked, I would say the real beginning of modern chemistry occurred not when we got to know about atoms and so on, not when we got to know about chemical combination, but when we got to know something about the chemical bond. Because the chemical bond is so important to understand molecules. Without bonding, there are no molecules, there are no compounds, right? Around 1925 to 1930, very, very important period. That is when people decided, if you have two atoms A, B, you will put two electrons with them, two dots, that is a chemical bond. Two dots, namely two electrons making a bond. That idea was the most fundamental idea that ever came on earth. As important as relativity, as important as any other important thing in science. If you forget everything in chemistry, remember, two electrons make a bond. That is very, very fundamental. And this was, of course, possible of a very great man called Linus Pauling. Linus Pauling was the greatest chemist of the 20th century. When he discovered the nature of the chemical bond, that is how young he was. About 25, 28. You can be that man, right? See, great discoveries which revolutionized chemistry were done by these people when they were very, very young. And I think you should do all that when you grow up, right?
D.G. Malemat Sorgiman.
maybe that gives me a reason to be in India. You know, somehow I feel with all the dirt, muck as we have in India, the thing that compensates for it is the poverty of India. That also makes me feel, you know, this may be what I should be here to do something about this. Not that I can solve it, but somehow that feeling that you can contribute.
I think it's probably true that you wouldn't be able to connect with people, poor people in India or people in Africa, if you were Professor C.N.R. Rao at the University of California, for example.
No. We had a security guard here. You know, security guards are not the most sophisticated, they don't have such a background. But I found, you know, this security guard came from what is now called what was then called the untouchable class, and now not anymore, but he comes from a very, very real lower strata of India. But his son was brilliant. In high school, he was one of the top students of the school. Then I told you, he after his high school, this security chap came and said, "Sir, I think you must give him a job in your lab or do something." I said, "No, no, no. He is going to the university." You see, he did send him. How do I do that? No, no, no. Let him take the competitive exam. He took the competitive exam. He got a top, you know, one of these exams like equivalent of SAT. You know, he did very well, and he got admission in a fairly good engineering college. And then I used to help him all through without telling he used to come for holidays. I would give him money for clothes and little various things. And you know, he eventually got a top first class degree as an engineer. Just a few months ago he finished it. Then he told me, "What about this job now? I can get it to you right away in the space department or somewhere right away." No, like he's now going to do post-graduation, you see. I want him to be a professor in this institute. What do you
continue after all this?
And this to me is as important as doing good science. I mean, you know, I, as a human being, I mean, you know, that father of this boy keeps coming. Because there are many such. I'm only giving one example to show what kind of things you can do in India. It is not much because India has millions of people. India has so many. But one here and there you have transformed.
It makes a difference, doesn't
huge
it?
Difference.
Yes. You're also involved in the Pontifical Academy.
Yeah.
And what does that involve?
Well, it gives an opportunity to think of other dimensions going to the Pontifical Academy. That is an unusual academy. I belong to all the other major science academies where you only talk of science, but here is one academy which has other issues of interest that they discuss and so on. But one of the things that I have learned from that, for example, what do we do about Galileo, the way he was treated in his life? You know, in the end, he was excommunicated. The academy made the present Pope say, "Look here, the church was wrong, not Galileo." And the present Pope agreed, and we made a big statement. I don't know if you know that 4 years ago, we had a big international group of people coming, all ambassadors, where he declared what a terrible mistake the Catholic Church did in what they did to Galileo. And we withdraw them, we reinstate him as a Catholic, and we reinstate him in the Pontifical Academy. He was removed from the academy also, he was a member of the Pontifical Academy. So this kind of thing, you may think it is a trivial thing. Though it is a trivial thing, of course it makes no difference to Galileo, he died long, long ago. But it does mark a very interesting lesson to the Catholic Church, indirectly. You know, it is nice to see mighty Catholic Church saying that they made a mistake. I think that is very good for all of us to be able to say that. Things like that interest me.
Most creative and productive.
I would say last 5 years are the best period of my career.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think
true.
that's true. That's remarkable.
After my 65th year, or 64th year, whatever. Yeah, that's true, and people will not believe it. That is why there is hope for old people, like I say. Because, you know, people, they write us off, right? And, you know, when you're 60, oh, you're ancient, they say, you're not even old. I would like to work till the last day in the lab. I don't want to stop working. You know, I tell you, if somebody says you can't do research, it is as good as giving me a death sentence. I mean, as good as say, why don't you go and hang yourself from the nearest tree? I mean, it's the same thing, because I have to be in science.